The Senate is getting close to passing a major immigration reform bill, but will the House Republicans go along with it?
Many Republicans support the measure, but other conservatives wonder if it will help or hurt the Republican Party. John Waggy has our story.
Some in the GOP are sending out dire warnings that the party is through if it doesn't get on the right side of the immigration bill.
If we don't pass immigration reform, if we don't get it off the table in a reasonable, practical way, it doesn't matter who you run in 2016. We're in a demographic death spiral as a party, and the only way we can get back in good graces with the Hispanic community, in my view, is pass comprehensive immigration reform. If you don't do that, it really doesn't matter who we run, in my view.
But many conservatives are concerned that politics is pushing lawmakers to pass a 1,200-page immigration bill in the same way Congress passed Obamacare in 2009. Without even knowing how it will affect the country.
I reject the idea that this policy reform of fixing our broken immigration system should be done for political or electoral reasons. I think that's the wrong reason, and I think it could lead to a bad result, because then when you say that we have to do this for political reasons, you may end up swallowing a bad policy out of a misplaced desperation.
Kentucky Senator Rand Paul says he won't support the bill after his amendment to enforce border security first failed. But he's urging Republicans to appeal to Americans of all races and ages.
We need to have this optimism, this happiness about our party that is people, that it is enticing to people. It needs to appeal to people of all races. When we look like America, when we have tattoos, without tattoos, with ponytails, without ponytails.
For the Democrats, Senate Majority Whip Chuck Schumer's immigration push has been a brilliant political strategy, shoving the IRS and Benghazi scandals to the side and dividing Republicans with a goal of adding millions of Democratic voters.
This is going to be a historic week for the Senate as we pass comprehensive immigration reform. We're about at 2/3 of the Senate right now. Our momentum is growing, so I believe we'll be in the neighborhood of 70 votes by the time the vote occurs at the end of the week.
Schumer also cautioned on CNN Sunday that he could see 1 million demonstrators meeting on the Mall if House Republicans try to bottle up or substantially change the Senate's version of the bill, a sign that Democrats hope it will be a wedge issue to help them take over the House in 2014. But Senator Paul doesn't seem to be intimidated.
It'll pass the Senate, but it's dead on arrival in the House. The House is much closer to me, and I think they think border security has to come first before you get immigration reform.
John Waggy, CBN News.
You've been to Africa?
I have.
Where'd you go?
I was in South Africa, down in Cape Town.
How much did your trip cost?
Oh boy, I put it on my credit card. It was thousands, you know.
Yeah,
a few thousand.
A few thousand. How about 100 million?
What?
That's what the president's trip to Africa is going to. $100 million.
Wow.
They're going to have a destroyer off the coast to protect him. They're going to have airplanes flying overhead all day long, 24 hours a day.
Oh my goodness.
He's going to have so many limousines, bulletproof cars, you can't believe it. 100 million bucks. You wouldn't spend that on a trip, would you?
Well, you know, I would not spend it on a trip.
Well, I wouldn't got it to spend, but
if I had it,
I sure wouldn't blow it on a trip. I did go to Africa as a guest of some people, and I went to the Kruger Forest, the Mala Mala Game Preserve. Oh, it was lovely.
You see the big five?
Of course, I saw. I'm trying to. Did I see any leopards? Well, actually, I had a leopard cub. They gave me a leopard cub, cute little thing, till he got bigger. And I went to see him in a zoo, and he came bounding toward me, and I thought, ah!
I visited a girlfriend who was South African. She was used to the game parks, and we just drove her little car through there. She gets out of the car and is looking around, and I'm like, in the car, please get back in the car. But they're not afraid. I mean, they're used to it.
I was afraid. We came across a bull elephant he was feeding, and we were in one of those Range Rovers, and he got mad, and he was a great big thing, 6 tons, and his ears were flapping, and he was trumpeting, and we go up a hill, and I'm saying to him, I hear you.
Yeah,
you know,
elephants
like,
are...
please don't hurt me. Anyhow, the president has given up going on safari. as a economy measure. So it will only cost $998 million instead of...
It's a lot of money for a trip.
Unreal. Anyhow, but they can't open the White House to visitors. That's $12,000 a week. They can't afford that because of the sequester, but they can afford $100 million. Shocking! Well, the president's giving a major speech today, and it could have serious implications for the energy industry in the United States. It is anti-coal. Anti-coal. John Jessup has that story.
Pat, the president is putting out his plan to fight climate change, and he plans to bypass Congress to put much of it into effect. The president wants to put limits on carbon dioxide emissions not only on new power plants, but ones that are already in operation. That includes power plants that use coal. Now, some analysts say that plan could force many of those power plants to power down and close altogether and hurt the coal industry. The president also wants more clean energy initiatives and increased energy efficiency for appliances like refrigerators and lamps. We'll have more on the president's plan on tomorrow's 700 Club. Now, Pat, the question many politicos are asking, why now?
Well, why now is to divert attention away from Benghazi and the IRS and the NSA and all the other stuff that's going on. So he says he'll switch to climate change and maybe he'll rally the Greens to come out and demonstrate. But, you know, I don't understand why they don't take the simplest route, and that's natural gas. We have so much of this stuff we don't know what to do with it all. We're over capacity. Our terminals are jammed with natural gas, and we have much more coming out. It's a clean burning fuel, and all we've got to do is a little bit of a government program, start switching trucks over to natural gas, switching automobiles to natural gas. And it's easy to do, and we have it. We wouldn't have to import the natural gas. And it's clean fuel. It doesn't pollute the environment. So why didn't he come to this? Well, he's against fossil fuels. So he wants to do Solyndra. He wants to do solar. He wants to do biomass. None of those things work. John?
Suicide bombers attacked the presidential palace in Afghanistan today. The attack could create problems for attempts to start peace talks to end the war there. Now, the palace is one of the most secure places in Kabul. Authorities say the attackers opened fire on security forces after trying to use fake documents to get through a checkpoint. All 4 gunmen were killed shortly after a car bomb exploded as it tried to enter into the same area. The Taliban claimed responsibility for the attack. It came as reporters were gathering for a news event with Afghan President Hamid Karzai. The IRS says it screened more than just Tea Party and conservative groups who were looking for tax-exempt status. The tax agency now says it also checked for liberal groups who use words like progressive and occupy. Conservative groups had complained that the IRS was holding up their applications, and one survey by McClatchy News Service found that no liberal groups had complained. The IRS said that the screenings had stopped in May of last year, but now it says the screenings lasted until earlier this month. Congress is investigating reports that the federal government, specifically the Department of Homeland Security, is stockpiling ammunition. Jennifer Wishon has that story.
The Government Accountability Office is now poring over records at the Department of Homeland Security. The congressional watchdog wants to know how the department purchases, keeps track of, and stores ammunition.
It is entirely inexplicable why the Department of Homeland Security needs so much ammunition.
Congressman Chaffetz says constituents called his office after reports surfaced that DHS, an agency that operates only on U.S. soil, was obtaining billions of rounds of bullets. That as retailers from major chains to small mom-and-pop gun stores struggled to put ammunition on their shelves. Last year, the U.S. Army bought 347 rounds of ammo for each soldier. In contrast, Homeland Security had 1,000 rounds for each of its agents.
So how many times, for instance, the Homeland Security last year have to actually shoot and fire a weapon?
ICE had 15 shooting incidents last year.
Less than 100 rounds?
Less than 100 rounds, yes, sir.
Homeland Security officials say they have no idea where reports of contracts for billions of bullets came from.
You don't have a purchase order open to be able to purchase up to $1 billion+ rounds over the next 5 years?
I believe, Mr. Chairman, there are several contracts for ammunition.
I'm just looking for a number.
And the answer is a little complicated because
I know. I just want a number.
NAAC eventually concluded his agency has 750 million rounds for 70,000 pistol-carrying agents. That includes nearly 2 years of ammunition in storage in case officials say they ever have problems ordering what they need. Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan says what Homeland Security has is a credibility problem.
You guys are obviously familiar with what took place at ICE, where 6 weeks ago, 2,228 illegal detainees were released. 647 of them were criminals. 8 of them were level 1 felons. And now the American public sees that.
Some Americans were also uneasy when pictures of armored vehicles known as MRAPs started surfacing on U.S. soil. These are vehicles designed to protect U.S. troops from IEDs on the battlefield.
I'm very concerned about it. Why do you need all this protection? Are you about to force something on the American people you know they're going to get upset about?
Homeland Security officials say the department has 30 MRAPs and agents are using them.
We use them for special operations, for officer rescue. In fact, one last year was extremely beneficial for us in a situation where it protected our officers from gunfire.
Some Democrats call concerns over the stockpiling of weapons and presence of military vehicles conspiracy theories, but they're enough to make Congress act. The audit of Homeland Security will take several months to complete. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, Washington.
Pat, what are your thoughts? Conspiracy theory or genuine cause for concern here?
I think bureaucratic screw-up is closer to it. This is a George Bush monstrosity. He was president, and he thought that the clever way to do was to take all these agencies and mash them together. Individual agencies, you know, like FEMA and all these others, he's going to squash them all together into this giant thing called Department of Homeland Security. They still haven't worked it out, and it is a bureaucratic nightmare. When you saw the way I was so involved in Katrina, the activity down there, when I saw what FEMA was doing, how it was not delivering the goods that were needed, how there were these huge lots full of trailers that weren't being used, incredible amount of purchasing that weren't going to the appropriate people. It was a nightmare. And the reason is, what did they have? They had a man who was the executive director of the Arab Horse Association in charge of FEMA. He knew nothing about it. But all the way up and down the line, they don't have the right mix of people. It is a bureaucratic monstrosity that should never have been put together. I don't care what they teach at Harvard Business School, this was wrong. And we're beginning to see the price. They're stockpiling hundreds of thousands of rounds of ammunition. They've got armored vehicles traveling the roads of America. Who ever heard of such nonsense? John?
Pat, Florida Atlantic University has reinstated the instructor who had students stomp on a piece of paper with the name Jesus written on it. He says the exercise was part of a lesson, and when word got out, it provoked a strong reaction, including a request from Florida Governor Rick Scott that university officials investigate. Instructor DeAndre Poole says the point of the lesson was to show the power of words, not to denigrate Christianity. But some conservatives say the exercise would never have been done using a name like Muhammad. Poole will now only teach online because of security concerns. High-wire walker Nick Walinda says he wants to take his next trip in New York between the Chrysler and Empire State Buildings. But the New York Police Commissioner Ray Kelly says he would say no to that idea. He says it's too dangerous and could be hazardous to those on the ground in case he falls. Walinda's walk across the Little Colorado River Gorge near the Grand Canyon Sunday drew a huge television audience, reaching 13 million viewers at its peak. Walinda walked for 22 minutes on a 2-inch cable, 1,500 feet high. A new study is challenging a common belief about eating and losing weight. The survey found that eating 2 large meals a day can help you lose more weight than eating 6 small meals. The study was presented at the American Diabetes Association meeting in Chicago. Researchers say people with type 2 diabetes who ate only ate only breakfast and lunch lost an average of 1.23 points in body mass index. Those who ate 6 small meals lost an average of 0.82. Now, Pat, what's your take, 6 or 2 meals a day?
6, baby. 6, baby. I don't agree with those experts. The experts are always coming up with something that's wrong, and this is something that's wrong.
It seems un-American, though, not to have, you're used to 3 square meals a day.
Well, they say you're supposed to eat breakfast like a king, lunch like a prince, and dinner like a pauper. That's the best way to lose weight. But the 6 meal a day thing, I think it's got some pretty good science backing it up. You keep the furnace going all day long with little meals, but they've got to be balanced properly. You never know about these tests, Wendy. They're always coming out with some scientist. Well, I've got another test. And everybody gets all freaked out, and it gets on the press, and we report it here, and then it all turns out to be wrong.
Well, you feel better when you're eating smaller meals, and you don't feel weighed down.
Grazing.
But it's certainly nice to, enjoy a feast now and then.
You don't enjoy, you're so thin, you don't enjoy feasts. I don't eat much of anything. I just don't do it.
Eggs are the perfect food. I mean, they will take you for hours.
I had a
hard-boiled egg will take you for hours.
I had 2 hard-boiled eggs yesterday. This morning, I went back to my regular breakfast, which is almonds, walnuts, pecans,
blueberries,
raspberries.
No oatmeal with that?
Oat bran.
Oat bran, okay.
And I had wheat bran, but I also have oatmeal, dry oatmeal, and put it all together, and I put a little orange juice on top of it. Yum, yum.
Orange juice on top of it?
Yeah.
You don't drink the orange juice?
Well,
I
did that in a restaurant one time. I asked for a glass of orange juice, had cereal, and the guy that was sitting across from me just looked in horror as I poured my orange juice over my cereal. What are you doing?
Dear. I don't think you're going to get too many followers on that. I could be wrong, but we.
Well, the milk is a little too fattening for me. I like the other. But anyhow,
all right, well,
I'm losing weight. All I can tell you, it's little by little.
It's working. All right.
The Supreme Court agreed today to reconsider the constitutionality of a Massachusetts law barring abortion protests within 35 feet of an abortion clinic. Opponents of abortion want the 2007 law thrown out. They say it violates their free speech rights by preventing them from talking to women entering and leaving clinics. Oral arguments are slated for October. Colorado officials have ruled that a 6-year-old boy can use the girls' bathroom at school. The boy's parents and other transgender activists are celebrating that decision. The Denver Post reports that Coy Mathis identifies himself as a girl, and his parents agree. The Transgender Legal Defense and Education Fund filed a complaint on the family's behalf, claiming Coy has been discriminated against. He will now be treated as a girl at Eagleside Elementary, located in Fountain, Colorado. Well, you can always get the latest from CBN News by going to our website at cbnnews.com